Now, for a deep dive into some of the psychological issues inherent in some situations of gender-based violence, I'm now joined by Dr. Gidumetse Mashego, a clinical psychologist and author. Doc, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. A very harrowing conversation around what we've seen, especially this week. Let's first talk about the psychological factors that often drive men to commit acts of gender-based violence. What are some of the common underlying issues?
Thank you for having me. With gender-based violence, we have to understand that people who commit such crimes, whatever gender, especially the males being the more dominant or the significant in the stats, is that they are unwell. They are projecting their anger or whatever pain that they've experienced, be it in a past relationship or even in their childhood, that they haven't processed or navigated, that they now projecting on the vulnerable group being females or children at large. So we really have to understand that people who carry pain, anger, no matter where it is that it stems from, if they don't process that, they carry that and it will come out somehow. And sometimes it comes out in this, similar instance where we see it, leading to someone's death.
Now, this week, we saw an incident with Busiso who admitted to murdering his 25-year-old girlfriend, Umaqele, in KZN. He filmed that on social media. There was also another video making the rounds of a couple who were in the car, seemingly in a fight, where the gentleman is talking about their relationship and how he's deciding to take both of their lives. Why do you think some individuals choose to record these acts of violence and then share them on social media? What psychological needs might this behavior fulfill for them?
People committing such crimes usually are so far removed from reality that they have so dissociated that they're not functioning like what we expect people to function as. So we have to understand that they are not well and that they are going through whatever it is that they are going through, and sometimes there's no logic in what they are doing, because sometimes we want to understand, but why would someone do this? And it makes sense to them. Even if we are to ask them that question, they will not be able to give us an answer that's satisfactory. So we have to understand it's like they're almost possessed by their pain or anger from their past that they are still carrying, that they haven't processed. And in their mind, it makes sense for them to end their lives in this way and show it off to, the world or through social media, or, as almost like as the last act that they are doing, to prove that they to act out their anger or whatever it is that they're experiencing. Because when you sit with some of these people who've, either abused someone, either emotionally or physically, and you ask them where it stems from, they'll tell you about things that were unprocessed, sometimes not even related to the current relationship. So that pain that we carry, if you're functioning from a place of pain, if you're not processing that pain, it is likely to be projected or manifest in the way you behave in your relationship or the way you react, where it's so extreme that it can lead to such instances like murder.
So staying with these murders that happen on social media, I mean, what motivates some of the perpetrators to publicly showcase these acts of GBV? Are there specific psychological traits or social influences at play?
People who commit such crimes usually have, personality disorders based on, what it is that they have, gone through in their lives. And unfortunately, people in that state, they don't have a conscience. Almost, they do these things where they commit crimes without actually feeling any remorse. And hence, they would want to show it off to the world because in their mind, it makes sense, even though for the people, looking on, or their families or their loved ones, it doesn't make sense. Like this, it's almost like the pains that they never dealt with, or the traumas, the anger, whatever it is that they're carrying in their subconscious mind is really taking over their life as their character. And we say to such people that it is the way they are, that we know that them as being angry all the time, but actually no one is born angry. It's because of what they have experienced, but also people choose not to deal with whatever anger they might have, that then it becomes their character and personality, and they act it out, and without a care in the world about the repercussions of that anger. So these people, they're not in the correct frame of mind, but it's what they have chosen. Because unfortunately, with psychological problems, if you don't choose to seek help, you will not benefit from any help. It will sit with you until you seek that help. And I think that's the challenge with psychological or mental health challenges, is that you only benefit from the help that you see, you deem that you need. So if you don't see that you have a problem, the problem just sits with you until you have the capacity or you're ready to deal with it. Therefore, these people, usually the prognosis is so poor that they're so far removed from their emotions that they have, such behavior that do not make sense to, the common healthy human being. And it's really sad to see such, consequences happen at the end.
You speak of choosing not to seek help. Do you think that ordinary South Africans have enough at their disposal in terms of resources for them to be able to get help?
We do have in the public sector, mental health facilities available to all South Africans who, don't have the resources, meaning medical aid. But people, there's so much stigma. And stigma is not just societal stigma, it's also self-stigma, in that people judge themselves for struggling with something. Because remember, also in our society, for the men especially, that, they are deemed as less of men because they have mental health challenges. So you can imagine, I mean, we're all human beings. We all have anger, we all have certain emotions, and if we're not expressing those emotions, or we're not given the space to navigate or learn how to process those emotions, it ends up in such instances. Because when you sit with men, they don't want to sit with their emotions, because that's not how they were brought up. And it's not just for men, I think it goes for all genders, but of course it becomes more significant with men because of the power they have physically to have such incidences where they can kill or abuse someone because of the power. Remember, abuse is also about power and control. And if someone is not okay, or they're coming from a place of hurt, be it in their childhood or past experiences, they will project that hurt onto someone. And it's usually the vulnerable, such as the partners, the females, and the children at large.
How do societal attitudes towards masculinity and violence contributes to the prevalence of GBV? And what role do cultural norms play in this behavior?
Oh, definitely they play a big role, because, there's statements like men don't cry, don't go there, crying is for the weak and emotions are for the weak. And yet we're all human beings, meaning that we're gonna experience pain, we're gonna experience hurt. And if we don't do anything with that hurt, we're gonna function from a place of pain. And unfortunately, that pain or that thing you're not dealing with, the anger, it can, become your character and your personality, and you act it out, in terms of how you relate to people. You're triggered, by things that are innocent because you're not okay. So we really have to, I take that saying, hurt people hurt other people, and I add to it, even if they were unfairly hurt, meaning that even if you went through some childhood trauma, if you haven't processed that, it sits with you and you will project it. So the healing, unfortunately, is on the onus of the person who experienced the crime or the trauma to actually do the work, or else we have them really, play out as wounded adults. And this is what we're seeing portraying in such instances, especially this week. It's very sad to see that, we have wounded adults who are in relationships, who have children, and who are really elevating or projecting severe anger to the extent that they're murdering others, but they're also taking their own lives. And it's really just a traumatic incident for the people who remain, to navigate and process. And if they don't navigate the loss in a way that is, assist them to move on from it, and not forgetting what happened, but just to not, allow the anger to overcome them and become their personality, they also stand the risk of becoming, angry towards people who did not hurt them, or even the people who did hurt them. So, pain and all the emotions that we have in the mind, if we don't process that, they really become trigger risk, or they just a crisis that can happen because of what we carry.
Maybe just going back to the situation of social media and what we woke up to with regards to Sbusiso, and then subsequently to the couple in Umkomazi as well as their child. How does the sharing of GBV incidents on social media affect society's perception of violence, especially against women? Does it desensitize the audience, or does it provoke outrage?
it can go either way. And as we've seen, we have what we call copycats, where someone takes their lives and someone actually imitates that. Or in this instance, someone murders others, and, people deem like it makes sense to some people, and they carry out that act, because of, just seeing it on social media. So social media definitely plays a role, or even the media at large, where it can create, some sort of desensitization to the value of life, because it seems like life doesn't, it's not valued as it should be. It can go so quickly, it's so fickle, right? And it's all because of what people are carrying in their subconscious, the pains that they're carrying. And it really is really a crisis that we have, because really, if we have wounded people who are not navigating or processing the pains that they have, either from the current or the past relationships, then we really are at risk for people to teach this to the upcoming youngsters as well, because this is the behavior they're going to learn, that this is the norm, that this is what happens in families, that this is, what happens in relationships. And this is, what they would also unfortunately carry on from generation to generation. So we really, must act in a way to really create systems where people are able to talk about what it is they're experiencing, but to also prioritize their mental health and healing from whatever it is that they need to heal from. Because when they're not healing from it, it will come out in some way or another.
So, Doc, beyond creating systems, and with that said, what intervention strategies can be effective in addressing the mindset of those who perpetrate and commit GBV and then share it on social media? How can psychology play a role in prevention?
Sadly, the people who do that, as I've mentioned, the prognosis is so poor that they are so far gone that even I myself, clinical psychologist, can say, this person has a poor prognosis from any form of intervention, meaning even if they are arrested, they cannot be rehabilitated because of how they present. So really, we need to aim at, preventative intervention, where we are talking about how do we then maybe talk about, what the mind is and how powerful it is. Because at times I deem that we talk about the mind, but we don't actually unpack it to people, what it means and the impact it can have on your reality and your general functioning. So we really need to maybe approach it in a less threatening way, where meaning there's no crisis, but we're just talking about it in the schools, or just empowering people to think about what's going on in their mind, and to processing this in a less threatening manner. Because when you tell people to come see a clinical psychologist, already they are not comfortable with doing that because of society, because of their own stigmas. So we really need to start, sensitizing people to seeking the help, to talking about pain, to talking about emotions from a very early young age. But the people who are currently, still able to receive the help from, mental health professionals, we need to really prioritize just giving workshops around, what the mind is, the emotions, and the dangers of not processing, because people are not aware. People avoid, to repress, pretend like something didn't happen to them when it did happen to them, and yet it impacts their life in such significant manner. So we really need to prioritize talking about the mind and what it can, the power it has, but also just the downfall of it if your mindset is just not doing okay.
All right,
It's not
Dr.
in the right
Mashego.
place.
All right, Dr. Mashego, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure having you on a very critical conversation around taking care of our mental health, also especially during this time of the year